Hello, this video will support you with engaging your learners in shared reading and writing. A strategy called Talk for Writing is what I'll be talking about today. So I've taken some tips and tricks from that to help you with your pupils. Now, some of our pupils can be reluctant to want to write when it comes down to it. How many times have you heard, but Miss or Sir, I don't know what to write. You've done all that work with all the pupils and it gets down to writing and they just don't know what to do. They may say this to you or show it in their behaviours. It's easier to say that than some of these reasons that I've listed. They don't remember which way to form the letters, maybe. They don't want to make a mistake, their pencil isn't comfortable to hold, or they just didn't have enough time to think of the ideas. The strategies that we'll be putting in place through this training will support the children to think about their ideas, act out their ideas, and create strategies to help them to remember to use all this new vocabulary or the spelling rules in their writing. Talk for Writing is a very good resource for children with English as an additional language, demand avoidance, dyslexia, speech and language needs. It's very fun, engaging, there's lots of repetition in it, lots of drama and sensory experiences, lots of reading for meaning, and it supports the children to acquire language and to build their vocabulary. So how does it work? Where do you need to start? So choose a short text, nothing too complicated, and have a think about the keywords and the vocabulary in the story that you want your children to learn. In the past, I've picked up a Biff and Chip book because they've got those interesting stories in them as well. Read it to yourself, get to know it, and think about the images and the different actions that you think of with some of the words to help you remember the story. Have a hook. Could it be something interesting? For example, the children walk into the classroom and everything's a mess because a dinosaur came in overnight. If you're working with a child one-to-one, could it be that something's missing from their desk or something's been added to their desk? Go for walks, explore, have that hook to really engage the pupil into this reading and writing experience. So have a think about how we're going to present this story and to support children to acquire the vocabulary from this story. So there's going to be a lot of hearing it over and over again, saying it and recording themselves talk about it as well. Play it, dramatise it, use lots of props, wigs and hats, for example, and allowing the children to read and explore it and familiarise themselves with the story. Have a think about the actions and the words that can be used and the different sounds as well in the chosen text. So using lots of expression to emphasize meaning and to allow the child to identify these words in their environment. So really supporting them to engage in the new vocabulary that they're using. When choosing your text, have a think about the key words and the spelling rules you may want them to use in their writing, and then implement it in the shared writing that you're doing. So after you familiarise yourself with the story, you can create a story map to support the children to identify the key vocabulary they need to use. And this story map is really important because it's what they're going to use to support them with their writing at a later date. As you can tell here, I've drawn a mouse, and next to the mouse, I put the sound in the target sound in the word mouse. When I've written the word ran, I've reminded them of how I wrote ran. So I'm modelling n to the children. And the direction of my arrow is going up to remind the children that they need to say or spell the word up the clock. So what you will do after you've drawn your story map all together as a class, so this isn't something you've done before and brought it to them, you've done this all together, repeating it and thinking about it, you then read it all together. So as a group or one-to-one, you'd say the mouse ran up the clock, and as you can see here, I've got my new k sound that we've learnt for the word clock. Here's an example of a story map of the Gruffalo and Jack and the Beanstalk. And here's an example of punctuation and key vocabulary being represented in story maps as well to support children to remember. So after you've drawn these lovely story maps all together, you then reread it with your children by pointing at the different images as well, or acting out all the actions in your story. Some tips for story mapping: send them home. It supports with familiarity. They can perform it to their parents, and they'll get to know it really well by the end of the week. Make it your own. Choose a story that's going to implement those targets and that key vocabulary for the children. So you've done a beautiful story map together. You've got your arrows to show you the way that your story is going to go. You've got your reminders, so it might be the huge full stops or the exclamation marks, the sounds that you want the children to learn, and the images, most importantly, the images to help them remember what words to use in their writing. So have the story maps available for the children when it comes to writing. Here at the top right of my page, I've created like an example table, what it could look like for your pupil. So have water available. It's really important when we're writing. When I do some writing, I have lots of breaks. I need some water by me, or I fidget a lot. So having something, a comfortable environment for children is really important. Have a now and next board so that they know what their expectations are, and let them know what you want them to write and how much that you want them to write. Have the story map available for the children. In the past, it's been really useful to sellotape these onto the table so that it's not too fiddly, because it could get a bit out of hand having all this paper on the table around the classroom and all you hear is the paper everywhere. So have the book or the piece of paper available for children to write on, and the pencil or the pen that they may be using to help them with their writing as well. So a nice calm and tidy environment for the children. Consider exercising before, during, or after the writing experience as well. This doesn't have to be something where children are sitting down and they've got a timer and it has to end in 30 minutes, for example. Have lots of breaks and do some brain exercises, and just make this a comfortable experience for the children. And remember at the beginning where the children may shut down and say, I don't know what to write, you just don't get anything out of them. Try and think of the child at the centre of it and what it is that they may be trying to tell you when it comes to writing. Children with more complex language difficulties can sequence symbols from the story or draw the pictures from the story map. This still shows understanding of a story, and this still shows children are using the vocabulary. They can do this both receptively and expressively, asking them to point at different characters, for example, or asking them what it is that they have drawn.